of you are over the age of 21? How many of you have ever consumed alcohol? The United States of America is one of only 12 countries that prohibits the consumption of alcohol before the age of 21. Currently in the United States, the minimum drinking age is 21 years old. In 1984, a federal regulation named the National Minimum Drinking Age Act required all states to prohibit anyone under 21 years old from purchasing or possessing alcoholic beverages as a circumstance for receiving state highway funds. Although this act clearly states the minimum drinking age to be 21 years or older, according to Raul Quintano in his article Age at First Drink, a study in 2011 conducted by the National Survey on Drug Use and Health states that the average age of first-time drinking is 17 years old. Many people believe that if an 18-year-old can enlist in the war and vote, they should be able to have a beer. Because I belong to the age demographic of this issue, I have seen firsthand the disadvantages of 21 being the legal drinking age, including many cases of binge drinking, false identification documents being confiscated, and the massive consequences that follow, and the unsafe environments where underage drinking takes place. A minimum drinking age of 21 accounts for an increase in binge drinking and a higher noncompliance with other U.S. laws, such as false identification documents. While on the other hand, lowering the minimum drinking age would be beneficial for the economy. Americans need a federal order of a minimum drinking age of 18 years old rather than 21. Such a law will offer adolescents and young adults the freedom to drink responsibly without harsh consequences. First, let's start off by taking a look at what the minimum drinking age of 21 looks like in the United States today. According to the article Underage Drinking Statistics Within the U.S., published by American Addiction Centers, in the USA, 1 in every 10 alcoholic beverages are consumed illegally. Although age 21 is a legal drinking age, more than 70% of teenagers have consumed an alcoholic drink before they have reached the age of 18. In 2009, the CDC presented a study about underage drinking by asking high school students a series of questions about their behavior for the past 30 days. 4 out of 10 reported drinking beer, wine, or liquor, and 1 of those 4 had engaged in binge drinking. Binge drinking has become an epidemic in the United States. Although teenagers do not drink as freely as adults, they are more likely to drink more in one sitting. Over 90% of underage alcoholism is related to binge drinking. Because the legal drinking age is 21 and many people begin drinking at 17 years old, people engage in purchasing false identification documents, fake IDs. According to federal criminal attorneys in the article Legal Penalties for Fake Identification, a conviction with a false document carries a maximum penalty of 15 years imprisonment and a fine. In most cases where a fake ID is used by a person under 21 attempting to get into a bar, it will likely qualify as a state crime rather than a federal crime. This ends up being a fine up to $1,000 and possible jail time of 1 year. If it's in a college town like here in Fort Collins, many bars turn fake IDs into the police department, and the names are cross-checked with CSU, and students are punished by the school rather than the state. If a lower drinking age were implemented, much more money could be spent on alcohol by people ages 18 to 20, which would be extremely beneficial for the economy. According to the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse, underage drinking results in 17.5% of consumer spending for alcohol. This number translates to $22.5 billion. If younger people were able to purchase alcohol, larger quantities of people could buy, which would increase the economy for alcohol distributing centers, distilling companies, restaurants, bars, and even sporting events. Now that we've talked about the reasoning for lowering the minimum drinking age, let's look at my plan for this policy change. My plan is to change the federal law of a minimum drinking age of 21 to be 18. When this law was implemented, the federal government offered state highway funds as an incentive for states to prohibit drinking alcohol under the age of 21. The new law will allow states to carry out minimum drinking age of 18 years old without the fear of losing state highway funds. These funds will automatically be granted to each state with no other strings attached. Someone who might help in making this change happen is Wisconsin U.S. Senator Ron Johnson. Johnson has stated that he believes that people old enough to join the military should have a number of other rights, including drinking alcohol. New Hampshire State Representative Max Abramson also supports lowering the minimum drinking age. He states that every other Western country has a drinking age of 19 or lower, and their teen alcoholism rates are lower than the United States. These two men could be a great help and support and make this happen. Because my proposal is to change the law that is already in effect there isn't much funding that goes into place. The incentive for states to make their minimum drinking age 21 is receiving highway funds. Rather than this incentive, states will be granted these funds without any other circumstance. I propose that this new law go into effect in the next presidential election, 2024. Because this law does make a pretty big change and it's a federal law, it should be on the presidential ballot. This policy will be enforced by the police department of each county. Police officers are the ones who handle underage drinking now, so they will continue to do so, but with a new minimum drinking age of 18. Now let's talk about how this policy will cure the problem at hand. My plan will help cure the problem of binge drinking and unsafe drinking because now young adults will have the freedom to drink responsibly. They won't be forced to hide it and sneak around. If 18-year-olds are allowed in bars, they can drink responsibly in a controlled environment. Because they have the opportunity to drink legally, they won't be forced to binge drink either. In European countries where the minimum drinking age is 18, there's less binge drinking. Because it's legal, it's less of a taboo for young adults, so it's not a rebellion act. In the United States, young adults are prone to drink because it isn't legal. Have you ever had someone tell you not to do something or say something which made you want to do it even more? Drinking is sort of similar to this. There's a lot of hype around the idea of drinking because it's something that young adults shouldn't be doing, which makes them want to do it even more. According to Dr. Thomas Frieden, director of the Center for Disease Control, about 90% of alcohol consumed by young people is during binge drinking sessions. The United States also has the highest rate of binge drinking in the world. In Europe, alcohol consumption has been integrated into their culture so much that it's not a big deal. In the United States, students and other young adults feel the need to be intoxicated in order to socialize and to have a good time. The law that makes it illegal for majority of college students to drink alcohol inadvertently makes it more likely for students to engage in clandestine binge drinking. The change in the Minimum Drinking Act that I pose could eliminate the need to binge drink in hiding. Because you all also belong to this age demographic, this law would affect you. I'm sure that many of you have experienced binge drinking and unsafe drinking, whether that be with yourself or your peers. This policy will allow for safe alcohol consumption and less health risks and alcohol-related injuries. One well-known counter-argument for this policy is that lowering the drinking age would be medically irresponsible. Many say that young adults consuming alcohol can interfere with brain development of the frontal lobes, which is essential for emotional regulation, organization, and much more. Alcohol consumption in young adults also poses chronic problems like greater risk for addiction, memory loss, violence, and decision-making. However, the benefits do outweigh this counterargument. With a lower drinking age, young people can drink freely and responsibly. This means they can drink in a controlled environment, which lessens the risk of risk-taking behavior. As stated before, in Europe, where the drinking age is lower and alcohol is more integrated into the culture, young adults are less likely to binge drink. This reduces the risk for memory loss, decision-making, and possibly violence. As you can see, the benefits of this new policy definitely do outweigh this counterargument. In conclusion, as stated before, this policy is needed for safer alcohol consumption and it would be good for the economy. With this new policy, young adults and adolescents will be able to drink responsibly in controlled environments rather than binge drink in hiding. This new policy will also lessen the flow of IDs throughout the country because young adults won't need to purchase them. My plan is to communicate with U.S. Senator Ron Johnson and New Hampshire State Representative Max Abramson, who already support this change and help to make it happen, hopefully on the 2024 presidential ballot. Thank you all so much for this time, and I hope to see this policy go into effect. I do have a few questions for you. Have you ever experienced binge drinking firsthand with friends or peers? Do you think there will be a lot of controversy about this policy? And do you agree with the change of the Minimum Drinking Act?